My former name, I have other former names, which is Catherine Anthony from my first marriage, and Catherine Dowden was my maiden name. Growing up, as when I was a kid, I went by the name of Kay, so I was known as Kay Dowden. I am a survivor of sexual assault by a United Methodist minister who was employed under the Texas Annual Conference administration. And of course, because any allegations of abuse from me are not relevant per Gwen Adams from the Domestic Relations Office of Harris County, who uses United Methodist churches under the Texas Annual Conference administration as visitation sites, any allegations of abuse from me are not relevant. So I'm going to share my irrelevant experience of being sexually abused and also being forced to visit my kids at a United Methodist church in Houston called St. Stephen's United Methodist Church over on West 43rd Street in Houston, Texas, in the Heights. So today I'm going to continue reading page 4 of the Safe Sanctuary Policy. The Texas Annual Conference hates victims of sexual assault, particularly from their clergy, and they really wish that we would go away. I can't see my kids. I was kicked out of supervised visitation because I exposed my history of being sexually assaulted by a United Methodist minister and being forced into the supervised visitation through the family court system by my ex-husband, who falsely accused me because Carl E. Anthony wanted to be able to get away with child abuse. And I was also informed by Harrison Fisher when I spoke with him about the Texas Annual Conference and their history of employing child molesters. He informed me that the Texas Annual Conference would retaliate if I continued to expose their involvement in employing child molesters and placing them in their churches. And so here I am talking about the Safe Sanctuary Policy as a survivor of sexual assault from a United Methodist minister that was employed under the Texas Annual Conference administration. And when they look up these policies, they will see my hideous looking face, because clearly I am their garbage, the bottom of their totem pole. They will see me when they look up their policies, and they will see a survivor of sexual assault from one of their clergy that they employed. Okay, I'm on page 4. I'm going to talk about peer abuse. Abuse perpetrated by a protected person to another protected person. 10, digital communication misconduct. All right. Contacting protected persons through electronic media, text, phone, Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram, etc., without including the parent or guardian, or taking pictures of protected persons without permission from the parent or guardian. Screening process. Prior to any event, the events leader is responsible for ensuring that all screening, interviewing, and training of personnel, caregivers occur. The screening process includes gathering and reviewing information to find individuals who can provide safe and caring supervision in a safe environment. I am going to circle back and talk about the digital communication misconduct. The Domestic Relations Office shares contact info, shares info of parents that are in the supervised visitation. This is a breach of confidentiality. They share this information with the churches, the United Methodist churches of the visitation sites, without the consent of the parent. Okay, this is number one. All individuals, including staff and volunteers working with protected persons, shall complete an application consent form. By signing the form, the applicant gives permission to have references checked and background screening completed by the appropriate authority. So there is a conflict of interest with the Domestic Relations Office having their supervised visitation at United Methodist churches, because the United Methodist churches are saying, this is what they're saying, doesn't mean that they do it, right? Okay, because we've talked, I have spoken about the fact that they do not, they're basically saying, do as we do. I mean, do as we say, don't do as we do. And so there are people who are working for the Domestic Relations Office, and they are monitoring the supervised visitation at the United Methodist churches. But they are not screened by anyone with the United Methodist churches. And the visiting parents, we don't know who they are. And neither do the custodial parents. I mean, my ex-husband, Carly Anthony, did not have a problem bringing our sons to visit me at a United Methodist church that was under an administration that had a history of employing child molesters, one of them being my father, who sexually abused me when I was a child. He was actually okay with having our sons around that type of atmosphere, because after my mother admitted to drugging me so that my father could sexually assault me in 2017, this is when she was alive, he allowed her around our sons and allowed her to be alone with them despite that. So he did not have a problem with taking our sons to a church that is to visit me, that is under a United Methodist administration that has a history of employing child molesters. In fact, he knew that I had met with Bishop Huey about my father in 2010. And the reason why Carl Edward Anthony knew who is my ex-husband and the father of our children is because we were married at the time. He knew about all of this, but he was okay with it. What does that tell you about his integrity and his character? Would you be okay with bringing your children to visit someone at a United Methodist church that is under an administration that has a history of employing clergy who have been guilty of molesting children? Okay. By signing the form, the applicant gives permission to have okay, I read that. The event leader, this is 2. The event leader or their designee will conduct personal interviews with candidates. Check all references and ensure that all documentation is submitted to the conference safe sanctuary staff representative or the district representative for processing, which includes, but is not limited to, Social Security number verification, a nationwide sex offender screening, and a multi-state criminal history background check. Let me tell you about background checks and criminal history. Okay. Someone who can't pass a background check because of a previous conviction, previous incarceration. All right. That's because they were caught. A clean background check does not mean someone is safe. And if it's someone who is a sexual predator, it means that they haven't been caught yet. If they are ever caught, right? Because there are many predators that are never caught. There are murderers who are never caught. There are so many cold cases out there that are never solved. Some cold cases I can mention, like Natasha Ashley, who was murdered in Livingston, Texas. This was a long time ago, back in the 90s, I think. I met her mother. That's another story. But anyway, that case is so old, a lot of people who were associated with it are no longer living. That will forever remain a cold case. Peggy Rayleigh, whoever it was that strangled her in the garage, Walker Rayleigh's former wife, that will forever remain a cold case because Walker Rayleigh was acquitted. So just because someone has a clean record doesn't mean that they're harmless. Now, I know I've said that I don't have a criminal history, and I don't. There's no history of arrest. And yes, I was ordered into supervised visitation. But there's no due process with this. People who are incarcerated usually have an end date or they're sentenced to life. People who serve community service, they have an end date, not with the supervised visitation. And I knew a school teacher who was ordered supervised visitation to visit his toddler. And he was a school teacher for an elementary school. How do you explain that one? I knew someone who was a registered nurse for Texas Children. She was ordered supervised visitation. How do you explain that? I would love to hear a good explanation as to why or what the lesson is in visiting your children at a United Methodist Church that is under the same administration that employed your father who sexually abused you. Or maybe it was because I deserved it. Maybe that's it. Maybe I should have been a better daughter. Maybe it was because I was born to be abused. Maybe it's because I deserve it. Maybe it's because I deserve it because I'm so hideous looking. Maybe that's it. I don't know. I mean, I just say these things because, why not? I assume that's what people think. I'm more likely to be skeptical and assume that people have a negative perception of me. Because why would they have a positive perception of me? So the supervised visitation is a corrupt organization. The domestic relations office is a corrupt organization. And when they kicked me out, they called me. They didn't even like to respond to emails. They didn't want to leave a paper trail. And I took a photo of the policies that we were given, but we were never given a copy of the policies. We weren't allowed to have a copy. And in fact, they would make policies up as they went. They should have given us a copy. And each time they added a policy, they should have given it to us. But they didn't. And the other thing that I was going to mention is, if you walk into a church, how do you know that someone who works with children isn't a predator? How do you know? What are the signs? I mean, I know what they are. I can spot a predator from a mile away because I was raised around them. My father was one. There were predators, sexual predators on his side of the family. And there was one on my mother's side of the family and the Hassel side. So I know. And my father was probably sicker than most because he could sexually abuse a child in a room full of people without anybody noticing. I noticed. Why would I notice? I don't know, probably because he did it to me. Probably because I witnessed him do it to the 3 girls that my parents tried to adopt. And I couldn't process what was going on at the time. He could do it in a way that people would look and wouldn't think anything of it. Mainly because people don't think that children should have body autonomy. And in churches, it is very common that a lot of people want to come up to you and give you uninvited hugs. And it is their way of sending you a message that you belong to God, you don't belong to yourself. So there is no body autonomy. So that is a very common thing in churches if you go to a church, especially the smaller churches, and people want to shake your hand or they want to hug you. Because for me, I just have my imaginary box. I don't want anybody to fucking touch me. Don't put your fucking hands on me. Just keep your damn hands off of me. I felt that way since I was a little girl. I did not want to be fucking touched. And there were so many times when people would want to hug me and I had no say, and all I wanted to do was shove them off of me or scream, and I couldn't. And the reason that I could not stand to be touched is because I was sexually abused. Okay. Let's see. This is number 3. All background check reports and application consent forms shall be submitted to the conference safe sanctuary staff representative for review. This is a load of crap. Because I would find it hard to believe that the conference administration had the information of the people that are monitoring the parents and children. And there is no way that the staff at St. Stephen's United Methodist Church did not notice parents and children being exploited. They certainly noticed Shane coming on to me. They noticed that, but they called him. I didn't even ask them to. They called him and said, why are you flirting with her? And which honestly is strange, because all they did was ask him why. They didn't say, perhaps you ought to keep your hands to yourself. They didn't do that. They did nothing. And let's see what else. This is for, if any reports raise questions about the fitness of the applicant, the questions should be directed to the conference safe sanctuary staff representative. The Texas Annual Conference reserves the right to turn away persons for service. So there's their out. If you are a survivor of sexual assault by one of their clergy, they can reject you. But if you are a clergy who was accused of sexual harassment, or perhaps the target of a lawsuit because of sexual harassment, regardless of if you're guilty or innocent, you can come back to the conference. You can come back to the Texas Annual Conference if you've been accused of sexual harassment. But if you are a survivor of sexual assault by one of their clergy, or if you were sexually harassed and you were a survivor of sexual assault by one of their clergy, they do not care. They don't want you there. Okay, this is number 5. Those serving with any protected persons should be active in a United Methodist Church for a minimum of 6 months prior to service, paid or unpaid. If the conference is contracting with a third-party organization, this requirement may be waived if the care provider meets and provides documentation by the Texas Department of Health and Human Services. 6, due to the rise of peer-on-peer abuse, screening for volunteers under the age of 18 and still in high school should include a written application consent form, references non-related, and 1 year of service in a United Methodist Church before direct contact with a protected person. This is number 7. No person who has admitted to the sexual abuse or neglect of a protected person or is known to have a criminal or felony conviction or civil record of abuse will be employed or permitted to volunteer or work with or around a protected person in any capacity. So, no one is immune to being forced into the supervised visitation. You don't even have to be going through a custody case. Someone could call CPS on you, and you could be forced into supervised visitation. You could be a United Methodist clergy under the Texas Annual Conference administration. And you could be forced into supervised visitation. You could even be forced to visit your kids at a United Methodist church, even though you're employed under the Texas Annual Conference administration. And if you think that the Domestic Relations Office would make an exception for you, they won't. I mean, they might, right? I mean, because, you know, the sexual assault survivors of the Methodist ministers employed under the Texas Annual Conference administration, we're just garbage. We're disposable. Isn't that right? Okay. This is number 7. Due to no person who has admitted to the sexual abuse or neglect of a protected person or is known to have a criminal or felony conviction or civil record of abuse will be employed or permitted to volunteer or work with or around a protected person in any capacity. No one, this is 8, no one who has been convicted of driving under the influence, DUI, or driving while intoxicated, DWI, within 5 years shall be allowed to act as a driver. Number 9, no one with a criminal drug conviction within 5 years will be allowed to work or volunteer with protected persons. 10, results of screening shall be kept confidential except for those who have a need to know. 11, screening is valid for 12 months and must be renewed after a 12-month expiration. Here's what else I wanted to talk about. So the United Methodist Church changed their rules, and they are allowing same clergy who are same gender loving clergy, LGBTQIA, to serve as clergy. They are also allowing them to marry same-sex couples. That's fine. I don't have a problem with that. However, the United Methodist denomination wants everybody to think that they're different than all of the rest. They want people to think they tell everyone they are all inclusive, but they're not. They're not all inclusive. They include everyone except anyone. The Texas Annual Conference includes everyone except anyone who was sexually assaulted by one of their clergy. They don't want you in their congregations because you are nothing more than an embarrassment. If you were sexually assaulted by one of their clergies, you are nothing more than an embarrassment and an eyesore to them, and they don't want you in their congregations. And if you speak out, they will retaliate in whatever way they can, and whatever legal means they can. They don't care. They also don't care if it's legal or not. They will retaliate. I know because it happened to me. They retaliated against me. And that's why I can't see my kids in supervised visitation, because I exposed sexual assault and I exposed sexual harassment. And so now I'm talking about their policies so that anytime they look up their policies online, they see my ugly face. They see what they're embarrassed of.